Hello YouTube, my name is Jack, welcome back to Barnyard Wargaming, and I'm so sorry for that crash. Second time restart? I have no idea what happened. Apparently demons are fickle today. I'm going to try and not press as many buttons as I can, but we're reviewing the Demons Codex today. So yeah, this is the first live Codex review we've ever done. We're off to a great start. Thanks for joining me, chat. Yeah, we're going to be reviewing this Codex from front to back and seeing basically how it's doing in the current meta, what I would change, what you guys would change, how you feel about the Codex right now. I'm going to chat to you all here today and see what your thoughts are on the book. I'll give you my thoughts, of course, and I think that a lot of you have probably already heard a lot of my thoughts throughout our games. If you don't know, I'm not going to press any more buttons, but we do a game every Tuesday and every Saturday. I do apologize as well. Today is supposed to be a very tranquil Tuesday game with myself and Neil. Neil's family, unfortunately, has gotten ill. I think you all know what that means. But yeah, we have postponed the stream to next Tuesday. We also are not doing a stream this Saturday. I'll be relaxing on the beach. So there's that. But today, yeah, I figured we would chuck in a nice little Codex review and see how we go. So if you enjoy the video, make sure you like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Yeah. Become a member if you want to do that as well. It's for only $4 Australian a month, and you can get deals and exclusive rewards, including over at Dice Arcade. If you go over there, you can get an additional 3% off of all of your orders, and up to 25% off new orders if you become a member. Yeah. Otherwise, hello to chat. Hello Warsmith. Hello Paul. Hello Jasper. Hello Dalton. Hey Dalton, how are we going? Yeah. Good to see you all in chat. I will answer all your questions along the way. I'm going to try and chat to you as much as possible. But without further interruptions, let's get into this Codex. Yeah, I'm going to start with the Warp Storm. And apologies for the glare and all the datasheet abilities. I can stop the glare like so. And we do have a even more zoom shot just in case I need it. So let me know, chat, how it all looks. Yeah, all right, so Demons. Before we begin, for anyone who's new to the channel, I have played Demons quite a lot. I don't want to toot my own horn and be like, I'm the best Demon player ever. I'm clearly not the best Demon player ever, but I do play a lot of games of 40K. I play probably about 3 games a week. I've been playing Warhammer for 13 years. For a bit of background, I've been playing Demons for about like 10 of those years, mainly Khorne, but other demons along the way as well. Tzeentch and the Disciples of Be'lakor are probably the parts of this book I know the least, but I've taken Demons to 6 different tournaments, and I would say I'm a pretty decent player at said tournaments as well. I used to have about a 75% win rate at tournaments with Eldar. Demons so far have given me like a 47% win rate or something like that. Not very good. So they're struggling. And I think a lot of people in the chat today are going to be like, oh, salty, salty, salty. Yes, it's a rant video. What do you want from me? I'm going to be salty. So, yeah, I don't think that they're doing particularly well, but that was a bit of insight on how much I've played, just in case anyone was wondering and is like, oh, who's this rando reviewing a book that he knows nothing about? Clearly, a lot of you are going to have different opinions to me about this Codex and about what they should do to the Codex. But I'm just going to throw out ideas today and see where they land. So, what are you guys chatting about? Let's do a quick little coverage. How do I feel about the doctrine change? Do you mean like the changes for Marine doctrines where they get to keep whatever they want? Yeah, it's okay. I think it makes the heavier armies, like the armies that benefit from heavy doctrine, like Iron Hands, a lot better. The Assault Doctrine armies are pretty much unchanged because you're staying the same as you were anyway. But yeah, I'm okay with it. That's something I'm fine with. The points changes are a little bit much, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Jasper's just wrote Be'lakor. Has been built and primed in 3 pieces. Nice. Demon lists, yeah, challenging, yeah. Yep, we're about to see. This was the first time I thought why when reading an FAQ. The insane Space Marine discounts and the dumbass flyer things, and to top it all off, let's break the only interesting thing about Marines doctrines. Yeah. Yes, also, when you're posting pictures and stuff, be sure to go do that in our Discord. The Discord is free, first link in the description. You can post all the pictures that you want over there, provided they are appropriate and of your minis. That's it. Thank you. But yeah, go do that. Yeah, nice. So salty, says Sinner. Yeah, good to see you again, Jackson. Yeah, I'm salty. No. It's okay. Honestly, today is about ideas, as I said. Right, let's get into it. So, I'm going to talk about each of these parts of the book kind of on their own. I think is a good way to segment them in the sense that I'm going to give you my opinion on what they should change about that section, assuming that they don't change any other section. So just assuming that they only change that one thing. So that would be what I would change, is what I'm saying. Because if you change a whole lot of things, there's a whole lot of variables that you can't really control. So if you're going to change one thing at a time, then we'll just talk about it like that. So demonic invulnerability. This is essentially you get your demon save. Invulnerable saves are not the same. People who can remove invulnerable saves, you can't remove demon saves. Honestly, I think that's great. The demons needed something weird and wacky. A lot of the things in here are weird and wacky and ignore rules like that. I think they should keep it. But for me, I would be increasing the save that they get against things like damage 1 weapons, just because there's a whole lot of volume of fire shots in the game at the moment. And when you get shot with 150 bullets, you can only roll so many 4-ups. Whereas a Terminator on cover, he can roll like a bajillion 2-ups and never die. But demons can never do that. And they don't interact with any cover in the game except for dense and obscuring. And most things in the book are either already -1 or don't benefit from dense. So there's really no point to terrain at all unless you're completely hidden, which I'm not a huge fan of. Right. Manifestation. This is the deep strike rules. For those who don't know, which I assume you would, if you're a demon player, you can come in closer depending on leaderships and the different parts of the board. That's great. But I would also add something in there that is like they are either completely immune to anything that says 12-inch deep strike denial, just immune, completely. Just ignore that entirely. Or warp locus units should be, you can ignore that if you come in within 6 of a warp locus. And if you arrive as a warp locus unit, you can still affect things that arrive on the same turn. So if you deep strike a warp locus, you can deep strike next to said warp locus. And I know people are going to go, oh my God, that's super broken. You just deep strike next to the warp locus unit, and then you just charge 6 inches when someone has a 12-inch bubble. But there are so many 12-inch bubbles in the game. Demons are the army that is supposed to ignore rules of the game, along with Harlequins. So I feel as though it would be warranted for an army like Demons. And even if you had something like Be'lakor or Deep Strike, he can't be more than 12. He has to be more than 12 away. And then you can have stuff that comes out 6 inches away from him. That would fix a lot of the problems. Like when you verse guard and you can't deep strike anywhere because their whole army is 12-inch denial. That's just silly. It just doesn't make sense. Demonic saves. Why not make it an irremovable invuln to prevent further unnecessary adding of another term? Yeah, they could do that too. Honestly, there is no way for it to be balanced as just a standalone save. Yeah, because it's really toxic. Some cases it's going to be ridiculous, and some cases it's going to be terrible. And that's because I think most of this book is swingy. It's swingy in the sense that pretty much everything in the book is on a 4+ save. And if you roll ridiculously well, you just win the game. But if you don't roll ridiculously well and you roll awfully, you just lose the game straight up. If anything, they should be removing a few of the things that are like a 4+ roll to make the other things, like your saves, seem less swingy. An unrenderable 3-up save against shooting would not be okay for Khorne, for example. They 100% require a weakness. Yeah, and I think that they should be weaker, if anything, Khorne specifically, from shooting. But in combat, they should get a 4-up save at the very least against damage 1. And greater demons should have a 3-up save in combat, at least against damage 1. So that you can't just have 1,000 dudes with chainswords completely rip you apart. They're Khorne, they're not supposed to die in combat, they're supposed to hit hard, and combat's their game. Right, malefic weapons, this is just like ignoring other parts of the game. Honestly, the wording on this is pretty terrible, and I think this should be a little bit changed in the sense that you should be able to benefit from your own buffs. So like if you're giving yourself +1 to hit or wound, it doesn't benefit on malefic weapons, which is stupid. I mean, why can you not buff your own guys? Seems a little bit like bad writing on GW's part. And the other thing I think that just in terms of a core rules update is things like transhuman and transhitman should also count as a modifier. I know that you're not modifying something, but technically you're modifying the result of a roll at the end of the day. So really they should be considered a modifier, and then malefic weapons should just ignore that as well, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that should just be slightly stronger. Demonic Terror I really like. It's just unfortunate that because of the way leadership works in the game, unfortunately, it doesn't really benefit in most cases. Like Demonic Terror is kind of useless in a lot of cases. Like against Marines, they just ignore it. Nids are fearless. Orcs kind of just ignore it. There's a whole lot of things to just have ignore combat attrition modifiers. Why would you ever need to make things -1? Especially when they have a secondary that's based around this. It seems just a little bit, I don't know, weak, but it is what it is. It's a cool rule and I like it. And Warp Storm. Now, let's get on to Warp Storm. Warp Storm, I really like it as a mechanic. I think it's great. It's very similar to a lot of other mechanics like the Luck of the Laughing God dice and Strands of Fate. But I would just change it in terms of making it a little bit more reliable, because it is, again, really swingy. Your saves are already 4+ rolls. This is just adding more 4+ rolls to the game, which is just, it makes it seem like you're going to get like 5 every single turn, or you're going to roll like 1 and then you can't even use it. If you roll a single 4-up or no 4-ups, you just don't get anything. And because demons do not have traits and they don't have doctrines, this is essentially everything for them. And that means it's just absurdly weak at the moment. Unless they're going to give them traits, and this is what I was saying about changing things individually, this should be twice as strong, at least, as what it is now. The things I would change about it would be something like you roll 8 dice and you keep all the 4-ups that you roll +2, and then everything in the game that says regain up to 2, you change it to just gain 2, and you can regain as many as you want forever. So you could roll 8, keep them, and then roll another 8 and have 16 and spend all of them. On top of that, they should lower all of them by 1 point at least, and probably change a few of them as well, because some of them are super swingy and you just spend all your points to do nothing. For example, Dark Invigoration. Dark Invigoration is the one where you heal your units for 5 points. That's a lot of points. If you're going to be spending 5, at least with the current rules of the game, when most things don't need it. For example, like Flesh Hounds, they can only heal a maximum of 1 wound, or Plague Bearers, 1 wound. Beasts of Nurgle, they can't even benefit from this. And most units in your army are going to be dying in 1 hit, or they're going to be on full health. To me, I would change this to just automatic 3. And if you happen to regenerate enough to revive a model, you just bring a model back with the amount of wounds that you have rolled. So like if you have a unit of 8 Plague Bearers and you regain 3, you get a Plague Bearer back and another wound on another Plague Bearer. So you get 2, but 1 is just on 1 wound. Because otherwise, 5 points, that's a lot. Even if you're playing Monster Mash with 5 greater demons, then and you take like 3 of them have taken damage, you can roll 3d3, you get like 6 wounds on average for 5 Warp Storm points, which you're only going to do that 1 in every 2 turns. And that's if you're regaining points on average. That seems pretty weak. And another one that's really swingy is something like the Burning Terror and the Wave of Sickness, which is where you roll 6s for your for enemy units. I mean, yeah, it's very like flavorsome, but it's also so swingy. I don't know. It is only 2 points, I guess. This one, fall back on a 4+. Yeah, it could be really powerful if you have a whole lot of Khorne units in combat with a whole lot of other units. But what if you roll, like, what if you have 2 units and you roll a 1 and a 2? Then you just spent your entire trait and doctrine for that turn on nothing. It just seems like, I don't know, if you're going to be spending 4 for that, it should be on a 2+ at the very least, or innate. You just can't fall back. Like, you just get it. Again, if they were going to introduce traits, then I would say make these not as strong. But if you're not going to give demons traits, then for sure, these have to be way stronger. They just seem really lackluster. What do you guys think in chat? Welcome to 40K. I tend not to roll a lot of 4-ups, so it means I lose a lot. Yeah, well, I mean, saves, your Warp Storm, even the Warp Storm effects after you've rolled Warp Storm. A lot of the stratagems are on 4-ups. It's pretty rough. Jackson, could you do a small summary of the rule you'll be talking about before you start talking ways to improve? Okay, sure. Fair enough. I will try to do that. I don't know this codex all that well. Yep. On average, I rolled 2 points. A couple of times I rolled 0. I think it should be unit-based, like Cabal points. Yeah. Hey, Glenn, how are we going? Yeah, even like Cabal points, I think that would be really cool. Or if you want to make it, flavorsome, related to like a specific unit, like Khorne or Tzeentch or something like that, then just make it like you roll a number specific to all the units on the board. Like you roll dice equal to the number of units on the board. And on like a 1, 2, 3, 4 for each of the gods. 5 is undivided, and if you roll a 6, you just get 2 Warp Storm points for anything. Something like that, I don't know. Paul, I know I've gone over Warp Storm, but essentially you roll 8 dice and every 4-up is you get points that you can spend on these abilities. It seems a bit swingy. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. I don't want to be on here forever. We've got to get through 5 books, essentially. Right, Khorne, the Exalted abilities. Indomitable Onslaught, Master of the Blood Tide, Rage Unchained. So Indomitable Onslaught is you can't lose more than 8 wounds per phase. This is now 50 points for Bloodthirsters only. It seems like a lot, but to be honest, it was the one that people were running the most. I think that instead of changing that to 50 points, it should remain at 40, if not cheaper, and then these 2 abilities just become stronger to make it so that they are more likely to be run. Again, if you change the rest of the book alongside these, then it wouldn't make as big of a difference. I think that these might become more popular, but you never know. Master of the Blood Tide, each time this model fights, if it made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention, then you add 1 to your strength and attacks. Yeah, maybe change that to something like every time you charge, instead of getting strength, because they're already really strong, just don't need that, you get attacks equal to the battle round number. So if you charge on turn 1, you get +1 attack. Every time you charge on turn 2, 2 attacks, 3 attacks, something like that. I don't know. Something a bit more powerful. Needs a little bit more of a kick, I think. And then Rage Unchained is double the number of wounds for its damage chart. Yeah, maybe that, and also you get a 5-up Feel No Pain, or a 6-up Feel No Pain, or something like that. Something a bit more resilient. I think would be better. And the points are fine for that. It's fine. Bloodthirster is still very fighty. Yeah, again. I think the problem I have with Bloodthirsters is that they, when you degrade them, which is really easy to do, they lose weapon skill, which just makes it so that your army that's already swingy, if you're on 5 wounds left, is hitting on 4+ in combat. For a 350 point greater demon of pure melee combat, I feel as though they should always be hitting on 2s. But I don't know. Yeah. Strats. I don't want to spend too long on the strats, but Frenetic Bloodlust, essentially you get to push a unit. It's like Devout Push from Black Templars for a Bloodletters core unit only, so you can only use it on Bloodletters or Blood Crushers, not Fleshhounds, not any of the characters. Yeah, I think it's good, although I would change the 2 CP cost of the move to just 1. I think that it doesn't really need to be 2, especially when you only have 5 stratagems. Again, I think that they definitely need to add a whole other 2 pages or so of strats to this book that is just for Undivided, for everything, that affects kind of like your whole army or any demon unit, because most of these are specific to 1 unit. So, for example, like Contempt for Sorcery, that's good. You can deny with any Khorne unit on a 4+ within 24 inches, but Fleshhounds do it on a 3+, and that's essentially their stratagem. Every unit in this book gets 1 specific stratagem. When the Fleshhound's stratagem is basically a stratagem for everyone, it seems like they don't really have a stratagem. They used to have a strat for like Advance and Charge or like +2 move or whatever it was in the last book, which they just don't have anymore. So, I don't know, add more stratagems and then it would be fine. Yeah. Brass Stampede, essentially you deal mortal wounds on a charge. You'd only ever use it on a vehicle or a cavalry unit. Yeah, if it is a vehicle unit, then you add 3 to the result. So on like a skull cannon or a blood throne, you get to add 3 to this result, which you would only ever use the stratagem on those vehicles. You would never use it on a normal Khorne cavalry unit because it's only on a 6+. You deal D3 mortal wounds for a command point. I mean, even if you're likely to roll a 6, or you're lucky enough to roll a 6, you're only going to deal like 1, 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky mortal wounds. It seems like it just doesn't really do anything. Maybe they need to change that one to on a 3+ for everyone, and then, or like 4+, and then on a 2+, you deal the mortal wounds if you're a vehicle. Something like that. So make it a bit more usable. Banner of Blood's really good. 3d6 charge, drop the lowest. If anything, that one should go back to just 3d6 charge. Because, so I was chat, just fixing something. Yeah, if anything, it should just go back to a 3d6 charge, same as it was before. Not drop the lowest, just roll all 3 dice and keep them. Yeah, because that was being used a lot in the previous edition, and I think that it was fine. Relics of the Brass Citadel is just giving you CP. Giving you relics for CP. Again, there needs to be a generic warlord trait stratagem. For those who don't know, demons don't have a single stratagem for giving additional warlord traits, and every other army in the game does. I don't actually know if there is another army in the game that does not have a warlord trait stratagem. I know that there's no other army in the game that doesn't have a trait. Demons is the only army that doesn't have a trait, so that seems a little bit interesting that they wouldn't have traits and they wouldn't have warlord traits. Definitely need to add that. And then Glorious Decapitation, that's just for 2 CP. You can maybe do some mortal wounds later in the game. For you Khorne players, I reckon that should just be 1 CP. And then add more strats. Warlord traits. Hey, Neil's here. How are we going? Yeah, Demons Codex lacking synergy. Locus used to encourage units to work together, but now the Codex is just relying on individual data sheets, so you need to lean into relics and warlord traits. Yeah, yeah, it really does seem like a book that is quite boring in the sense that there's just not a whole lot of stuff going on. There's no warlord traits stuff, there's no traits, and there's just not a whole lot of synergies between anything. Yeah, which to me I think is the most fun part about building an army, right? You want to build an army to make some weird and wacky rules with it and then have fun at like a tournament displaying your knowledge of a codex with a strange army. And you can't really do that because they just are so simple, I guess you would say. Yeah, what else we got? I thought he was sick. He is. He is sick, but he's at home. The Brass Stampede one is dice per cavalry model, so it's pretty good on crushes. Oh, okay, fair enough, Kaiju, yeah. Dice per model. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, each model in here, okay. But is it within engagement range? Select one enemy unit within engagement range of that unit and roll for each model in your unit. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I see that. That's a good point. Demonettes and Letters are incredible troops, best in the game. There's no way for this faction to deal with T6 plus without monsters. In the UK, the big monsters just don't survive. Yeah. I don't know about best in the game. They are certainly decent troops, but I definitely would lower the points cost on them. For example, like I know that Harlequins just went to 5-up invulnerable saves, but a Harlequin who has 4 attacks and is like strength 5 -2 for 2, can fall back and charge and shoot and do everything that they've ever wanted to do, has 1 less AP than a Bloodletter, and Bloodletters can't do anything like that, and they are 13 points a model, which I think is the same cost. So I think that most of them should go down at least a point or 2. I'd put Khorne Bloodletters at like 100 and Demonettes at like 100 or 90, something like that. They just need to be a little bit cheaper. Demonettes miss fight first and 6 is at AP4, yeah. Yeah, Demonettes, again, they lost fight first and they lost advance and charge. So they're good, but I don't know. They just lack synergy. Warlord traits. I like most of the warlord traits. I think that they're actually quite okay. I think most people take Brazen Hide, which is on a 5+. You just have a feel no pain, 5-up feel no pain. It works against mortals and everything else as normal. Yeah, I think that most of the warlord traits for Khorne are actually fine. You just need a stratagem to actually take more, because again, you can only take 1. So most people just take Brazen Hide on their Bloodthirster with something like the Armor of Scorn. The Armor of Scorn is you add 1 to your saving throws against damage 1, which again, I think for most greater demons, you should get +1 to your save against damage 1 weapons. I would say to a maximum of 3+, so that you can't stack it with things like this, and you can't stack it with the Tzeentch, like having 3-up saves flat already. But yeah, they definitely need some extra protection against damage 1, which is good. That's why a lot of people take Armor of Scorn. But again, even this one, each time the bearer would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound in the psychic phase only, against mortals only, you get a 4-up feel no pain. Maybe just change that to 4-up feel no pain against mortals, not in the psychic phase. Seems like a little bit too niche. Argath, King of Blades, add 1 to the damage of your weapons and ignore modifiers to your hit and wound rolls. Great, really good. And I like that it specifies for attack and wound, because if it was also damage, I think it would be a bit too strong. Nurgle already has a relic for that. But again, this absolutely should be ignoring Transhitman and Transhuman. The amount of times I went to a tournament with Argath, King of Blades on my Bloodthirster with a 3 damage sweep attack, and I hit like a unit of Marines or Terminators with 3 damage, and then they just transhuman me, and I wound on 4s, and I can't kill anything, is ludicrous. Should definitely ignore Transhuman and Transhitman. Yes, for sure. Crimson Crown, retaining Warp Storm points for killing things. Pretty good. A lot of people take that. Rune of Brass seems too niche, but fluffy. There's a lot of relics in the game like that. It is what it is. Bloodringer Talisman, regain a wound on a 5+. Pretty good. I like that. But again, if you're going to cap it at 6, maybe change it to like a 4+. Because 5-ups is pretty niche. You have to deal 18 wounds to cap out on 6s, on 5s, like on 6 wounds. So, which is a lot. How likely are you to kill 18 different models? Not really that likely. Maybe change to a 4-up. Yeah, and then Skull Reaver. I actually think this is pretty good. I've tried this with the Bloodthirster with the whip, and it just changes him into having a essentially the normal big axe again. Very good against knights. So I rate that one a lot. Right, data sheets. This is taking a lot longer than I thought. I'm going to try and speed through this. I don't want to be here all day. Yes, Neil's live from quarantine, yeah. Woot, painting time, yeah. Thanks, Glenn. Completely agree. Glorious Decapitation at 2 CP is a joke. I love the fluff, but it's so situational and guarantees nothing. Yep, agreed. The wording to bypass transhuman-esque abilities has existed since the Dark Angel supplement. At this stage, it can only be intentional that so few things ignore it. Yeah. You think demons would be adaptable to current warfare? Well, they've been around for so long, Sinner, but apparently no. Right, let's just jump through this real quick. Scarbrand, he's great. I really love Scarbrand, but again, I'm just going to say for all the greater demons now, I would change a few things. Firstly, they all need to be Titanic. They all need to be able to fall back and charge, so that they can all fall back, shoot, charge, do all the things like a knight. They're essentially a knight. They should be able to do that. Scarbrand's ability, and then they should all get +1 save against damage 1 to a maximum of 3-up. And on top of that, they should definitely all count as 10 for the purposes of holding objectives. That is a must. That would be game-changing. Even they're not obsec, but just for the fact of holding an objective as 10 models, definitely should be a thing, same as a knight. That should pretty much, I think that should be on most knights in the game. Wraith Knights, Storm Surges, anything like that as well. But, yeah. Scarbrand's really good. I love him to bits. He's really, really awesome. But I would definitely change his Rage Embodied ability to be you add 1 to the attacks of your units, not enemies. And then you automatically pass morale for your units, not enemies. And each time an enemy wants to fall back, it's 3d6 and they can't. Unless you're doing it for fluff purposes, in which case you need to add more to the rule. For example, because you'll be fighting alongside Khorne, add 1 to the attacks of all units, but all units within range can only hit on a 5, unless they're a Khorne unit. Something like that. Even if it's fluffy against an enemy Khorne player who's playing Marines or Demons of Khorne or anything like that, make it so that if you're going to give extra attacks, the enemy also becomes wild and swings like crazy as well. Scarbrand degrades, he hits on 4s, and he lost his full reroll to hit like he had before. Definitely things need to become more wild and swingy around him if you're going to make everything +1 attack. Yeah, that's just me. Bloodthirsters, really good, love them. Again, greater demon changes, maybe change them to always hit on 2s because they're a Khorne unit. Otherwise, really good. I think they're good. Yeah. Moving on. Skull Taker, really good. I love Skull Taker. However, he should be probably like 30 to 40 points cheaper. He's 110 points, which is a lot. That's a lot of points for something that can't advance and charge, doesn't not get any rerolls, doesn't get any bonuses to charging, doesn't get any bonuses to advances or anything like that. Aura range is only 6 unless you kill characters. Yeah, good at killing characters, but again, should maybe just be a little bit cheaper. I mean, against something like, what is his name? The guy from Custodes, that is just an absolute powerhouse. He's like 200 points. Mental blank, forgot his name. I played 2 games against him back to back. First game, my opponent did not turn off my rerolls and did not transhuman. Second person did. First person died easily. Second person, I did 0 damage and then I died. And for 110 points for doing absolutely nothing in a game, that's pretty ridiculous. I think 80 points would suit Skulltaker really well, and then he would be awesome. Yeah. Trajan. Thank you. Trajan and Valoris. How could I forget? Everything above 20 wounds should have at least, it counts as 5. Yeah, that should just be part of the core rules of the game. Bloodmasters. So, a Bloodmaster. Pretty good. I think it just has the same problem as Skulltaker. Just too expensive. They just don't do much. And you're just giving away assassinate points on top of any other random secondary that a lot of people in the game have now. Having characters that are useless is really bad. So just lower them in price. I think otherwise they're good. Skullmaster, same thing. Basically just lower them in price and they'd be good. Yeah, and then the Renmaster on Bloodthrone. Haven't used this one yet, but yeah, I reckon it's fine. Just a bit cheaper would be nice. The Malefic attacks as well, I think might be better if they were ignoring things like Transhipment, and could benefit from your own attacks. I mean, in a thematic point of view, these things are literally attendance Hellblades. They are literally Bloodletters that are standing on the chariot. And a Bloodletter not standing on the chariot would get buffs, but a Bloodletter standing on the chariot would not get buffs. Doesn't make sense, does it? All right, moving on. Karanak, actually not bad. Came down in price. I think still too expensive. And I think a lot of the problem that Khorne units have is that they have a 4+ save in shooting and then a 5+ save in combat. Doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, they're supposed to be melee orientated, so yeah, bring them down in price. Bloodletters are good. Change them to maybe like 100 points. They'd be good. Blood Crushers, 40 points a model now. Pretty good, but their base sizes are massive, and so it's kind of hard to use them. So I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I don't really know how to fix these. They're either hit or miss. You either just take a full squad of them every single time, or you never take them at all. One of those units is really hard to balance. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe lower them in price just a little bit more. If you're not going to buff the rest of the book, I think maybe like 30 to 35 points is fine. 40 points is a bit expensive. Flesh Hounds, really good. They came in price, 15 points a model. That's a steal. Love it. Skull Cannons, 90 points. It's a joke. They're worth like 60, honestly. They do pretty much nothing. You really have to, like, the only way to buff them is with a character from Forge World that they wrote incorrectly because they didn't write core on its data sheet, and they just don't do much. I would definitely be changing the stat line on this one. Heavy D, 3+3, 8 -2, 2. Change it to like maybe 3 shots, just flat, and damage like 4 or 5 at AP 3. Something like that, something ridiculous. These used to have a strat for halving all damage, which they don't have anymore. Yeah, I just changed it to something hilariously ridiculous. Either a whole lot of shots that are like low damage, so like double the amount of shots this gets, or something like a prismatic cannon from a Voidweaver that just one shot, big damage. Something good for a meme. I think would be great. And the Skull Altar. Maybe Blood Crushers could get something similar. The leaks are that the WE or World Eater's Lord on Juggernaut gets some kind of fly rule. Oh, maybe. Fly though? As in like they just move through terrain and models and stuff? Could be an option, doesn't really help the unwieldy base size. Yeah, they just can't fit. Maybe should have like advance and charge. Yeah, the problem with Blood Crushers is that they don't have purpose to advance and charge across the board. You kind of want to deep strike them, but because they're so expensive and you can only deep strike half your army, it makes it almost impossible to put anything else in deep strike. And then when you deep strike, you have to be almost in the middle of the board because you won't fit anywhere else, because there's just 9 models or whatever it is that have such a massive base size. Yeah, I don't know. Skull Altar. I've actually tried this a few times in a few games. 50 points is really good. The only thing I would change though is it has this weird rule called Ritual Slaughter, which is at the end of your move phase, this model can perform an action. So, yeah. Oh, actually, I just realized at the end of the move phase, this model can perform an action. So the altar itself is doing the action. You don't even need anyone on it, which is pretty good. I thought you had to have someone on it, but there you go. Wrote it incorrectly. It's completed at the end of your next charge phase. Once completed, roll a d6 for each Legionnaire Khorne unit within range, within 12, and on a 4-up, you gain a Warp Storm point. It's honestly not bad. The only thing I would change is at the start of the charge phase, it's completed for every unit within 12 that you have of an enemy unit, not within engagement range or something like that. Because Khorne really want to spend a lot of their Warp Storm points also on your charge phase, like ignoring modifiers to your charge. And I found that because you only have one really good Warp Storm ability, which is +1 attack at the end of the turn, unless you know that you're going to regain 2 and then you spend all of them down to 0 and this thing gives you 2 points that you can then regain, it's just kind of hard to use. So maybe make it easier to use. Like if Warp Storm was fixed, this thing would be fantastic. But until that day, this thing, yeah, it just kind of is just an annoying 50-point unit that you can actually use for the Reality Rebels. Yeah. Wow, we have been going for a long time. We've already been going for 40 minutes and we've only gone through 1 and there's 5 books. Okay, I'm gonna really hurry it up. Right, Lords of Change. Tzeentch I don't really know a whole lot about because I don't play Tzeentch as much as I play Khorne, Slaanesh and Nurgle. I think that they're in a pretty good spot, so there's really not a whole lot that needs to change. I mean, again, they have 7 stratagems compared to Khorne's 5. Most of these are pretty good. I've seen a lot of people use different exalted abilities, so they're fine. The Tzeentch strats are fine. One thing I would change for sure is Warp Portal should not say instead of making a normal move, it just said you should just teleport, because right now you can't use the strat to get out of combat, and when you can't fall back and cast or fall back and charge, that's stupid. You should just be able to use this to teleport yourself out of combat at least and then cast. Yeah, just take your time. Yeah, but we'll be here forever. I don't want to be here for 2 hours reviewing a book. It'll take too long. Let's keep it to. I'm trying to keep it to like an hour, but we've been going for 40 minutes. Yeah, yeah, that one I definitely would change. Warp Portal, so you can teleport out of combat for sure. The rest is pretty good. I can't complain, to be honest. Tzeentch is in a good spot, so most of it is pretty good. The discipline's pretty good. Yeah, Boon of Change still there. It's quite fluffy. It's a bit swingy, but it is good. The Wall of Traits, I think a lot of these would be taken a bit more if you had access to a Walled Trait stratagem where you could take more than just one Walled Trait. But yeah, most people just take Incorporeal Form. See you, Warsmith. Thanks for joining. Yeah, Incorporeal Form is basically like the go-to, which is -1 to wound on your Lord of Change. Like that's particularly strong when they're only toughness 7. Yeah, if you could take more Walled Traits, I think this would be pretty good. But yeah, can't complain. Relics of Tzeentch. Yeah, they're all pretty good. I'm actually, I've looked through a lot of them and tossed up using a lot of different ones, so they all seem to be pretty decent. You either want to stack yourself for dealing a lot more damage, or you want to stack yourself for stealing wounds back from people with your Lords of Change. Both are fine. A lot of people really like the Impossible Robe, which is once per phase when a saving throw has failed, you can change the damage characteristic to 0, and you can choose. It's not just the first failed save, it's any save. Pretty good, but I don't know. I tend to try and take something else like Soulbane or Soul Eater stave, because when you have a 3-up invulnerable save and you're -1 to wound, the Impossible Robe just seems kind of pointless. Kairos is great, just got nerfed. Lords of Change got nerfed. They're fine. Most of this section is honestly fine. If there is a Tzeentch player who ends up watching this video, then yeah, let me know your thoughts on what you would change for Tzeentch. I think the main problem for Tzeentch isn't their data sheets or their relics or wallet traits or anything. It's just the rest of the Codex. Things like Warp Storm, secondaries, stuff like that. Indirect buffs to Tzeentch would be the go-to. Yeah, now let's get on to the fun stuff. Nurgle. Okay, so Nurgle. Yeah. Exalted abilities. So, bountiful gifts, you can retain up to 2 Warp Storm points if you're alive. I've used this one a lot. I think that the main problem I have with Great Unclean ones is that they either tend to die in one turn, or they live for the entire game and never take any damage. And I think a lot of people who are newer to the game will try and shoot a Great Unclean one because they look scary, but really they don't do a whole lot. And then players who are a bit more competitively minded, they either find a way to kill you in one turn, like advancing and charging a huge unit of Marines that can just melee you to death because you've only got a 5-up save in combat, or they just never hit you at all. And they just tie you up in combat with something because you can't fall back and charge, you can't fall back and psychic, and really, these things don't hit particularly hard in combat. The most damage that you can get out of a Great Unclean one is 6 attacks that are only 2 damage, revealing all wound rolls at -3, or it's D6 damage, and that's just so swingy that it just doesn't seem like it's super viable to you know, to use Great Unclean ones all too well. You either have them full health or dead. So retaining 2 Warp Storm points is pretty good. It means that those competitive players that don't really want to bother shooting your Great Unclean ones just will never shoot you, and you'll just retain 2 of your Warp Storm points. Again, though, I think this should change to just gain 2 Warp Storm points, not regain. Hideous Visage is -1 leadership within 6 and -1 to combat attrition. You can stack this to a pretty devastating effect on units that aren't immune to combat attrition modifiers. Combined with Bellacor's rule. Bellacor's rule is also -1 leadership and combat attrition. So if you had both within range of a unit and also they're below half strength, then they'll be running away on 1s, 2s, 3s, and then 4s, which is disgusting. But again, morale's just in not a good spot. Revoltingly Resilient is -1 damage in combat only, and it's 30 points. To be honest, I think that all Nurgle units, if you're going to add traits, which by the way for Khorne, a trait that I would add if you're going to add them would be something like either +1 to charge on Deep Strike, or on charge you have an additional AP, or 6s to wound, are a mortal wound, something like that, charge related. Nurgle definitely -1 damage, or 5-up feel no pain, as they used to have. Or at least 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds, something like that. And then this thing would, of course, change. If all Nurgle Demons were -1 damage, you would not have this stay in the book, because then you'd be -2 damage, and that would be absurd. But if you're not going to add traits, this should just be -1 damage, flat, all the time. Even if you want to change it to like 40 points, -1 damage is pretty good. Yeah, stratagems. Transhuman, really good. Can't complain. That's a solid take. Why would you never not use that? It's pretty good. Slime Trail, this is one of those strats I was talking about, chat, with the 4+. Everything's on a 4+ in this book. If you want an enemy unit to not fall back from your Beast of Nurgle or Slimix, as long as it's not Titanic or an aircraft, it's on a 4+. Again, rolling well, you're just going to do really well. Rolling bad, it's going to do nothing. You're going to waste CP. Yeah, so I was fixing something. I just don't think that is particularly worth it. Like I think that should be on a 2-up, or just you can't fall back at all. Chortling Moraine, really unique strat. Essentially, you get a Bile Piper to deal a whole bunch of mortal wounds to a large brick of guys. It is really good, especially when you can stack it with the Nurgle spell for -1 strength, -1 toughness. I've tried it. It's hard to pull off, but when it works, you can do like 4 or 5 mortal wounds for a command point, which is not bad. So I can't complain. Nurgle again has 7 different strats, so they're decently well off in this department. Swarming Flies, that should definitely be 1 CP for -1 to hit in any shooting or combat or whatever. It's the same as the Eldar one for lightning fast reactions. That is still 1 CP. They changed it from 2. It's 1. Why is this 2? Should be 1. Pestilent Inspiration. Know all the spells. Pretty good. Plague Banner. 6 to wound or a mortal wound. Pretty good. And Crushing Bulk. Same as the other one. I've used this a fair few times. It's not bad. But, yeah. It's pretty swingy again. It's on a 3-up. So, yep. Warp Rot. Stream of Corruption. Right. So I think most of the Nurgle spells are actually decent. They're okay. I think that they're fine. It's the rest of the book that needs changing. These are okay. Malodorous Paw, I might change that to like 7 instead of 8, which is cast on an 8 within an enemy unit within 18 and visible, can't perform actions, and loses obsec. It's really strong, but with the way that the meta's changing, this just seems a little bit expensive on an 8. Yeah. The rest are fine. Nurgle Wallet traits, honestly, are okay. Nothing really amazing. Nothing really, crazy. They're fine. Just leave them where they are, I think. Change the rest of the book. Relics. Corruption's really good. That's fantastic. The Horn of Nurgle's Rot would be amazing, which is reviving Plague Bearers based on the amount you kill with a Great Unclean One. If your Great Unclean Ones did more damage. So I think that would be fantastic. You can put this on like a Demon Prince and then have the Demon Prince fly in and just kill a bunch of dudes and then regain all your Plague Bearers. But it's maximum 3 Plague Bearers a turn. The most you can get back in a single round is 13 to your table. Because a tree can revive up to 7 if you roll 7 6-ups. And then you can roll a d3 and get a 5+ on a bell from a Great Unclean One and then kill units with this. I think this one should be a bit stronger. Entropic Knell. Honestly, I take this a lot. It removes an enemy unit's ability, or it halves the number of models for an objective, which is pretty good. The downside is you need to get pretty close to them to be able to do it. So maybe increase the range to like 18. Yeah, otherwise it's not bad. It's honestly not bad. And this one definitely needs some changing. Tome of 1,000 Poxes. Psycho model only. The bearer knows 1 additional psychic power from the Warp Rot discipline, and then each time you manifest the psychic power from the Warp Rot discipline, if the result of the psychic test is a 7, that psychic power cannot be denied. No. That should definitely change to 7+. Why is it just a 7? Why? I mean, it's fluffy, but how often are you likely to roll a 7? If you cast 2 spells a turn for the entire game, the chances of actually having that succeed is like what? You get it like maybe 3 or 4 times? Why? That's silly. No, it should be 7+. If you're going to take a relic for it, surely. Effluvial is actually really good, and the Endless Gift, I think, is the one that people take the most. So I'm not going to talk about them. They're really good. Rodigus, again, all the Nurgle units, honestly, are not bad. I think that if they change the Great and Clean ones to deal a bit more damage and to make them 10 wounds for objectives, having a 3+ save, probably giving them a 4+ save instead of a 5+ save in combat should be the way to go. That's a little bit weird. I don't really know why they have a 5+ save in combat. But yeah, changing that would make them a little bit more durable, and I reckon probably a lot more fun in the game. Yeah, would be way easier to read and balance if they would just normalize things like transhuman and -1 to hit. No more same as Phantasm or just like transhuman. Just give it a name and balance it in core rulebook. Yeah, agreed. But yeah, that's a whole different ball game. That's just, yeah. GW being GW and adding rules to the game that just make it more complicated. Yeah, yeah. Let's not get into that. We'll be here for that all night. Right, Poxbringers. I think most of the Nurgle stuff is honestly not bad. I think that they just need to reduce it in points. Like, Great and Clean ones are a little bit expensive. They got changed recently in the data slate to be 20 points cheaper. If it was me, from the current meta that they are in at the moment, I'd be making them like 80 points cheaper. They just don't do much. Like, they don't hit, they don't psychic, they barely shoot, they can't fall back and charge, they can get bogged down so easily. They just need more, you know. I don't really want the Codex to become really cheap and you end up running a horde of dudes. I reckon just make it, you know, make them better. That would make a great Tuesday night. All night. No. Sinner, we're not going to be here all night. No. Yeah, Poxbringers, Scriveners, Epidemius, Bilepiper, just reduce them. Like another 20 or 30 points each, I'd say, would make it good. Epidemius as well. I read through him the other day. Man, how far he's fallen. That's terrible. When this model's on the battlefield, keep a tally of how many enemy models are destroyed by attacks made by legions, demonic, and Nurgle units from your army at the start of each battle round. If there are 7 or more marks on that tally, after making a Warp Storm roll, gain 1 Warp Storm point and reset that tally to 0. So you can't get it turn 1. If on turn 1 you kill 7 models with Nurgle units, then in the next turn you get 1 more Warp Storm point. That is so bad. That's terrible. That should easily be like, I don't know, if you're going to make that the rule and it's going to reset, make it like 3 Warp Storms or something crazy. He used to be so good. Now he's just kind of like useless. He doesn't do anything else either. He's not even a psyker. So he just exists. No, thank you. Slaanesh is pretty good. When you run a lot of beasts and a lot of drones, not bad. Can't complain. Just needs to be cheaper. Plague Bearers, again, good. If Warp Storm was changed, they'd be really good, but just need to be cheaper. Nurglings are really good. Beasts and Nurgle are really good. 70 points now, cannot complain. Nothing to say. Plague Drones, 40 points a model. They're actually not bad. They fly. They do a little bit of damage. I would just maybe increase the damage that they can do. Like, I honestly don't know how you would do that. Maybe just give them every 6 up to wound is a mortal wound, in addition just flat or something like that. They just kind of hit and then just exist, and then they just don't do anything. So I don't know. They're great against armies that don't have a huge amount of punch and also aren't fearless, because you can hit, deal a little bit of damage, and then watch a lot of models run away. So yeah, but against something like that does have a lot of damage, they just don't do anything. So. And then the Nulmore is actually really good. The one thing I wish that they would change about both this and the Skull Altar is from the core rules, which says that terrain features can only be deployed 3 inches away from every other terrain feature. Why? Why is that a thing? it should be, you can just deploy more than half an inch away from any other terrain feature. Half an inch would fix everything. I understand that they're trying to do it so people don't deploy it on top of another building, but 3 inches is a lot. That makes it very hard to deploy, even a small model like a Nalmor. So just make it half an inch. All right, now book number, are we up to number 4 already? Okay, we're making good time. Yeah, let's go. Okay. So, Keepers of Secrets, Slaanesh. The trait that I would give Slaanesh should probably just be Advance and Charge. I think Advance and Charge. 5 first is a little bit annoying to use, and I think would get a little bit toxic for some armies to verse, but Advance and Charge, that's just a given. I don't know why they don't have Advance and Charge. Really? Sinner, this is your section, my friend. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me why. Why do these not have Advance and Charge? They absolutely need to have Advance and Charge. All morning, yes. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, they have to just Advance and Charge. Diaphanous Panoply. Each time a ranged attack is made against this model, -1 to wound, same as the Tzeentch one, except notice how the Tzeentch one is just -1 to wound all the time, and this one is, and is a warlord trait. This one you have to pay 35 points for, and it's just -1 from ranged only. Maybe just make this -1 to wound innate all the time, and it's only 20 points or something. Seems a little bit ridiculous. And that is the one that most people take as well. Epicurean of Agonies is each time this model makes a melee attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores 1 additional hit. You can only give that to a Keeper of Secrets, obviously, which has 10 attacks. So you're likely to get basically another 2 additional hits every time you charge. I think it is decent, but 25 points, maybe might get like 5 points. It just doesn't really do a whole lot. I think if you were going to make it 25 points, it should be like this model always hits on 2s and 6s are additional hits, something like that. And then Insatiable Onslaught, 20 points. Add 2 advance and charge. Add 2 to advance and charge rolls. Honestly, not bad. If you're going to make it 20 points, maybe make it like 25. And this is add 2 to advance and charge rolls, and you can advance and charge, so that you can actually make use of both advance and charge. Yeah, or just make it add 1 to both those rolls, and you can advance and charge. Unless you're going to give advance and charge to the book, to all Slaanesh demons, then I don't know. This one needs something else. Yeah, stratagems. So, Thirst for Souls is the Eldari stratagem. You basically use it against Eldari. You can reroll the hit and the wound roll. Now, I think that that's both really fluffy and really amazing, especially when you come up against Eldari, of course, yeah. But the problem I have with it is that when you use it in combination with Rapturous Standard, which is a Slaanesh icon unit, which is just giving them reroll all hit rolls, what if you're versing Eldar and you have I know that you can use both stratagems in the same phase. For example, if you have a Demonette unit charge, one can reroll all hit rolls, one can reroll all hit and wound rolls. Yes, but they're likely to interrupt and kill you anyway. I just wish that these 2 stratagems, Thirst for Souls and Rapturous Standard, were different abilities that you could use in tandem, rather than just being the same rule, with this one being better and only available against Eldari. I don't know why they wouldn't just make this one slightly separate. Yeah, Impossible Elegance is pretty good. Impossible Elegance is Trans Hitman in the fight phase only for your characters. I really like it. However, I would make this also available in the shooting phase. Because, yes, Keeper of Secrets, they could abuse this, but most armies hit on 3s, and you are -1 to hit innate. So if they, in the rare case, either hit on 2s with something crazy, like a big shot, or they get +1 to hit, for example, with a hammerhead with a marker light, or something that ignores modifiers, Hilariously, this is not a modifier, so you could make it -1 to hit. I think that this would be great if it was shooting phase as well. I would probably change that to be shooting phase. The Endless Dance is a pylon move for Demonettes. I've never used this one. I think if they changed it to an additional, it is an additional 3, so you can move 6. Yeah. Each time you make a pylon or a consolidation move, you can move an additional 3. This would be really good if you could run units of 30. But now that you can only run units of 10, it seems a little bit not great because your Demonettes move 10 anyway. The chances that you're going to be able to make it in and then get them all within combat with something kind of is a given. Why do you need to move 12 inches in the combat phase instead of 6? Meh. Maybe to like tag something, it's okay. 1 CP, it's fine. Melodic Delirium, which is for your Fiends unit. In your opponent's psychic phase, units within 12 of this Fiends unit that you select are -2 to their psychic tests. Honestly, very situational against something like Thousand Suns, Tzeentch Demons, Grey Knights. It could be good in tandem with a few different Warp Storm effects as well. Yeah, it's just, it seems really situational. And I don't like that Fiends don't get access to any other stratagem other than this one strat, which is really situational. If there was more stratagems, this would be a fantastic strat. If there weren't, if there's not going to be more strats, add something to this stratagem so that it does something against non-psychic units as well. Like everyone is -1 to hit within 12, and psychic units are -2 to their tests. Yeah, Race Through the Warp, I will say. This one is for a vehicle unit, so essentially a Hellflayer or a Seeker Chariot, which there are 6 different chariot variants. You can remove it from the table and then come in from reserves in the same turn, strategic reserves. It is sad in the sense that this thing, when it comes back in, it has to be more than 9 away because it doesn't count as a unit for manifestation for demons, which means you can't come in closer to your target. But in some really, really rare situations, this is actually fantastic. I played against a Necron player recently. I charged across the board. This thing, my Hellflayer, tied up a lot of stuff in combat. Eventually everything fell back. The Necron player teleported his unit of heavy destroyers to the other side of the map with the Veil of Darkness. And lo and behold, I removed my chariot from the table for Race Through the Warp. And then because it is in strategic reserve, you can come in from your own board edge. I came out an inch away, charged him again, and tied him right back up in combat. It was fantastic. But again, really situational. So it's fun, but in a book with limited strats, it seems underwhelming. And Razor Sharp Caress is giving your Demonettes that additional AP on wound rolls of 6s for a command point to make them go to -3. I think this should be to -4 is the one thing I'd change. If you're going to make it wound rolls of 6, it should be an additional 2 AP because they used to be -4 AP, I believe. Sinner, correct me if I'm wrong. In combat, this should be -4, not -3. Otherwise, it's not bad. Yeah, Soul Stain. I actually really like a lot of the Slaanesh powers. I think that a few of them just need to come down in cost, really. Phantasmagoria and Cacophonic Choir both being at a 7 is a little bit expensive. Phantasmagoria, essentially you roll 6 dice, every 5+ is a mortal wound, and -1 leadership, which stacks, so you can get up to -6 leadership. Huge, I know, but you have to first cast it on a 7, which is, you know, somewhat unlikely, and then also you have to roll 5-ups. The chances are not particularly in your favor. I think yeah, 6s were AP4, yeah, thank you, Sinner. I think that they should change that one to maybe like cast on a 6 at the very least. And then Cacophonic Choir is, you roll 3d6 and over units, over their leadership for every difference between their leadership and the roll. They take a mortal wound to a maximum of 6. Honestly, fantastic. These two in tandem, where you make something -1 leadership or -2 or -3 or even more, fantastic, like straight away, and then using Cacophonic Choir after that, that's really, really good. But again, you have to cast both of them on a 7. It seems like a little bit too expensive, no? Both cast on a 6. Bye, Neil. Thanks for joining. Yeah, maybe cast on a 6, I think would be good. Delightful Agonies is great. Pavana Slaanesh is great. Symphony of Pain is really, really good. And Hysterical Frenzy, that's incredible. I love that one. +1 attack and exploding hit rolls of 6s for your Demonette unit. Really good. Love that one. Wall of Traits. Now, if you had a Wall of Traits strat, again, you'd be taking a whole lot more. The one that I go to normally is Warp Mists, which is just retaining 2 Warp Storm points. This, again, should be gain 2 Warp Storm points, not regain. Yeah, the rest is okay. Each time this model makes a 5 ups to wound, ignore invulnerable saves. Yeah, it's fine. Add D3 to your attacks. Maybe just add 3, not D3. Rerolling hit rolls and then rerolling wounds against characters. Not too shabby. Yeah. Maybe like ignoring modifiers or something as well. And then at the start of each battle round, add 1 to the Warlord's Strength to a maximum of +3. Why put a cap on it? If you're going to live for the entire game, just let them add 1 strength. It is what it is. And then Aura of Bewitchment, you can't do actions within 6 inches, and you fail if you come into contact within 6 inches of something with this ability, all your actions, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. I reckon, yeah, that one, yeah, it's good. It's an aura. You can increase the range of it with Warp Storm as well, so not bad. I'll use 1 or 3. So Warp Mists or the Murder Dance. Yeah, Murder Dance I think should be a little bit stronger, and this one should be gained, but it's good. The rest are fine. Relics. Okay, so the Slothful Claws. Add 1 to damage of your weapon. It becomes a relic, and then you can ignore... yeah, each time this enemy model loses any wounds as a result of this attack, until the end of the phase, the enemy is not affected by the aura abilities of other units. Yeah, maybe change that to the unit is unaffected. I know it's less fluffy, but it makes it a bit better because you only get 4 attacks with Slothful, with the Ravaging Claws and the Sapping Claws. So it's good, and you make them 4 damage, which is good, I suppose. What's interesting about these as well is that you add 1 to the damage characteristic of the weapon and you can't modify their characteristic. I think that's probably been FAQ'd, but yeah. Stupid. Sinner, you're saying the Soul Stealer. Yeah. So Soul Stealer is you regain a wound for each model that you kill to a maximum of 6. Now this is insane compared to the Khorne one, which is dealing damage and then healing only on 5s, which is why I think Khorne kills a few more models, but on 5s, it's pretty ridiculous. I think it should be 4s for Khorne, if anything. I think because this is crazy. And then against Aldari units, you auto wound on hit rolls, which is crazy. Yeah, it's really good. I think it's a good one. Silver Strike I use as well. It's pretty good. Not bad. Just a great relic. Mark of Excess I think could be a bit stronger. The Forbidden Gem. In your command phase, select 1 enemy unit within 12 inches of the bearer. Until the start of your next command phase, any aura abilities that unit have no that unit has have no effect. It's great, but maybe increase the range because it is pretty hard to use. I know that you are fast, but the chances of you living near a unit like that is unlikely. It's just too situational. And then the Whip of Agony, it just replaces your whip and does more damage. I think it just needs a bit more damage. Changing it to, instead of 6 shots, it's 8 shots. And then hit rolls of 4+ auto wound. Yeah, just needs a bit more strength in it, I guess. Shalaxi Hellbane is really good. I think most of these units, again, I honestly wouldn't really change too much aside from the Greater Demon changes that I said earlier. Greater Demons in general, I think just need a bit more kick and a bit more survivability. Keepers of Secrets are actually quite good because you can hide them behind terrain. Not in the sense that they can't be obscured, but if you have a big wall, a lot of tournaments have these big wall sections. Keeper of Secret models are actually quite small in comparison to a lot of the other greater demons. So I think that Slaanesh as a whole is actually decently survivable. They are definitely the weakest if they do get shot because they're only T7 and they only have 20 wounds. I think changing them to have a 4+ save in combat would probably be the way to go. And then with a Shining Aegis, which is the shield that they can take, that changes their save in combat to a 4+. Maybe make that like they become -1 to hit and wound, or you can only hit them on a 4. Something like that. Similar to the Custodes Dreadnoughts that have the shields, like they're -1 to hit, and they have a 4+ invulnerable save all the time. I think that would be a better use, because having a 5+ save in combat, unless you take a shield, is kind of silly. Otherwise, I think that they're good. They do need Advance and Charge. If Slaanesh had Advance and Charge and the Greater Demon changes were in effect, this would be huge. The rest just needs points drops. Drop. Again, and this thing as well, both of these are only T4 with 4 wounds. At least give them 5 wounds. That's a bit crazy. Silesk is probably one of the most expensive units in the book as well. It was 200 points, went down to 180 points. I think that should be like maybe, I don't know, 130, like 50 points cheaper than it is now. It really doesn't do anything. You get +1 to hit and you get reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1 for all your core units within range. But Keepers of Secrets give reroll hit rolls of 1 and all Heralds give reroll wound rolls of 1. So typically you don't need that. Yeah, and it is a Psyker. It does manifest 2 powers. So yeah, but only moving 10, no Advance and Charge, no fly, only T6 with a 5+ save in combat. Seems a little bit squishy. Maybe like 150 points. I don't know. It's not great. Contorted Epitome is huge. I love the Contorted Epitome, but I just think that the points need to come down a little bit. It's like 160 points. I'd make it maybe 140, 130. I don't know. Yeah, it's good. Cast 2, deny 2, not bad. And then all your chariots. So there's just a lot of different chariots in here. Heralds, more chariots. Demonettes I spoke about, they're good. I think maybe just reduce them in price just a little bit. Fiends are really good. Stratagems and stuff being changed, they would be much better. This is the unit I have a problem with, Seekers. Seekers, and in particular Seeker chariots. I feel as though a lot of people talk about Seekers. The mask is underwhelming, Sinner is saying. I think the mask is actually quite good. Fall back and charge, fall back and just do whatever you want, like a Harlequin, and make the unit that you're in combat with -1 to hit and wound. That's pretty good, but yeah, it's hard to keep the mask alive because only 4 wounds, right? Seekers are the unit that I have a problem with because a lot of people say that they're great because they can move so fast, but the problem is that they don't deal any damage and they also don't do anything. They don't have a tool, they don't have a utility. They can't make a unit like fight last, they can't do like actions and stuff, they can't tie stuff up in combat too well. They're really squishy, so they kind of just race down the board into their own death. I think what these things need is some kind of tool. So like, a weird rule, like if you're in the enemy deployment zone, the enemies within 18 of you are -1 to wound. Or like something weird, you know, a distraction. They need some purpose, even if they're not going to be able to do actions. They need purpose. Either that or just increase the amount of damage that they can do. Their Lashing Tongues are only 2 attacks. So I was fixing things. Yeah, it's only 2 attacks. 2 attacks at 1 damage for no AP. Yeah, I think maybe increase that to strength 5, -1, 2 damage at 2 attacks each. Or how about like strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage, malefic 4 or 5, something like that. you know, just a bit more damage potential would be good. Same goes for the Seeker Chariots. The Hellflayer Chariots are quite cheap, and they do a lot of mortal wounds, and sorry, not mortal wounds, that's what the Seeker Chariots do. They actually do quite a fair bit of damage on charge, because they get 6 attacks that are strength 6 -2 for 2, which is huge. I think that's pretty good. That's definitely a marine killer. They used to ignore Armor of Contempt when it existed as well, and they're only like 75 points, so it's not bad. I think that they're pretty good. They're worth their points, and they're just a distraction, so that's good. Now, finally, last but not least, let's get on to the Disciples of Be'lakor. Just as an inside, the models are really awesome for the Seekers. They are really awesome. That's why I want them to be good, Paul. I think that's most of this book. Like, all the models in this book are really awesome, but also all the models in this book lack damage, and they lack tools, they lack utility. They need more, you know? They just need something to sink their teeth into. Okay. Be'lakor. Yes, finally. All right. So, about 3 more units to go. So, disclaimer on Be'lakor. I think that if you've made it this far in the video, take everything I say in this particular section with a grain of salt. I used Be'lakor in, I think, 2 tournaments. I haven't used them a whole lot. I do not play with Disciples of Be'lakor very often. I don't have a huge grasp or understanding of Chaos Space Marines. They are one of the armies in the game that I just do not play a huge amount of. I've tried most of the legions, and I know a lot of their rules, but I don't know them well enough to make a great call on the Disciples of Be'lakor, because you can use the Disciples of Be'lakor with Marines and obviously Demons mixed together. So that kind of combination, I'm not used to. I do know a little bit about it, but yeah, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Let's just, yeah, Noctic Discipline. Well, let's just go through it. So, Shrouded Step is great. You can teleport an infantry unit, and they have to be more than 9 away. This is huge, though I might be more inclined to change it to cast on a 7 instead of a 6. And instead of being 9 away, they count as manifestation. So you can warp locust them. They come down leadership distance away or 3 away in your deployment zone. It still makes it 9 away for the enemy deployment zone, so you can't alpha strike with a huge unit, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, this one I think just needs a little bit of a change. Wreathed in Shades. Yeah, cast on a 7. Pick any kind of unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, within 12 of the Psyker, which is essentially going to be a Demon Prince or Be'lakor. Until your next psychic phase, enemy models cannot target that unit with ranged weapons unless the unit is the closest eligible target. It's pretty good if you're going to be running a huge brick of something like Beasts of Nurgle, Plague Drones, or Blood Crushers. This is a way to get them across the board, which is huge. Yeah, so not bad. Pall of Despair is really good. Essentially, this one is you cast on a 7, roll 3d6 over the enemy's leadership, and then you can either make them lose an aura ability, they can't do actions, or they fight last. Interestingly, this is the only form of fight last in the entire Codex, and there's no fight first, unless I'm mistaken, which is nuts. So yeah, this one is great because it gives you access to that. I just wish that there was more fight last in the Codex to begin with, because the fact that you have to cast this on a 7, have it not be denied, Be'lakor does not get any bonuses to cast, have it not be denied by someone, or denied on a 4+, like by Templars or World Eaters or whatever, Khorne Demons, and then roll over their leadership. And most things in the game are leadership, like 10 Necrons, 11 for Custodes. That's crazy. Then you can finally make them fight last. That is so unbelievably swingy, it's ridiculous. Like, what if you want to charge a unit up the board and you want to hit a unit of like 10 Terminators, for example, and you want like 4 of your units to hit it so that they don't interrupt and kill your whole army. and you try and get Pool of Despair off, you roll a 6 for your cast, you CP it, you roll a 7, and then you roll under their leadership anyway. It costs you a command point, you fail the spell, you get nothing, and then all 4 of your units charge the enemy unit. You deal like 2 wounds or something because you whiff, and then that unit interrupts for 2 CP and just completely wipes your entire force. It just seems unfair, no? I mean, that's great, but if you're gonna put the only form of Fight Last here, this should be cast on a 6 and it just goes off, no leadership, and the enemy fights last. At the very least. Something like that. Or if you're going to make this what happens, it should be cast on a 7, roll over leadership, and all 3 of these things take effect. Not choose one. Should be all 3. That's crazy. Void Slivers. Essentially, this is like you draw a line and anything under the line takes mortal wounds. I think this would be huge if the line was like 24 inches. Right now it's only 12 inches, and you would never take this spell in your list when you can take Betraying Shades. Betraying Shades is you cast on a 6, you select an enemy unit that's visible within 18, and then you add up, you choose 6 models in the unit and you add up their attacks characteristic, and every 6+ is a mortal wound. Like you roll that many dice, every 6 up is a mortal wound. And if you cast it on an 11 or more, then every 5 up is a mortal wound. That's way better than Void Slivers. So Void Slivers needs some work, and then and Betraying Shades is great. Penumbral Curse is select an enemy unit with an 18 in the Psyker. Until the start of the next Psyker phase, each time a model in the unit makes a melee attack, subtract 1 from their wound, roll, and worsen the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. The only reason why you would ever take that spell is if you're running Disciples of Be'lakor with Marines by your side, and then you take this on Be'lakor and you make an enemy unit wound your Marine units less. It doesn't do anything for demons, which is not, that's fine, because you get to choose your spells anyway based on your list, so it's not bad. But again, casting on a 7 for -1 to wound and -1, yeah, I don't know. It seems a bit rough. For me, I would always take something like Shrouded Step and Betraying Shades, or Pool of Despair and Betraying Shades, just because this is the only form of Fight Last in the entire book. Now, Be'lakor. Senna says, Be'lakor is okay but needs work. Slaanesh has Fight First on 4 Warp Storms. Yeah, that's true. You're right. But still, unlikely, right? Yeah, Be'lakor is honestly fantastic. I love Be'lakor. He's great. The only thing I would change is I would reduce him by about 100 points. And I think a lot of people are going to hear me say that and go, what? 100 points? Are you a madman? No, I'm not. I've taken Be'lakor to 2 or 3 tournaments, and when you want to deep strike half of your army, and this guy's 420 points, and is probably the most defensible unit in your entire list, you have to start him on the board. And yeah, he's -1 to hit, -1 to wound, -1 damage, and you can't reroll the hit. And what happened in 3 or 4 out of 5 of the games that I played? You go second, you get shot, and you go down to 2 wounds remaining. You can't heal yourself enough, and your 420 point greater demon who has no shooting and only casts 2 spells and denies 1 is useless and just dies in the next turn to Bolter Fire. No, I'm sorry, but if you're going to make him that killable, he absolutely should be 320 points. That's ridiculous. If anything, something needs to change, right? Like he needs to be, 100 points is fair when meta is Votann and Guard. Exactly. Either he needs to have +1 save against damage 1, so at the very least he doesn't die out of Bolter Fire and has a 3+ save. That would be fair, I think. Or he needs to be I'll have a lot more wounds, be toughness 8 innate, not toughness 7, so that melters wound him on 5s, not 4s. What 4s? Who cares about that? You're wounding the same as like a Bloodthirster. And they're 300 points. He's 420. Why? Yeah, it just seems like he either needs a massive amount of resilience, or they need to make him way better in some other form, like casting a lot more spells, or reduce him to like 17 wounds so that you can then make him obscured. That would fix it, so that you then can't see him at the very least. I know his wings are massive, but still, something like that. Or like make Demons the only army in the game where you can deep strike an unlimited amount of models. And then you can deep strike your whole army and this doesn't become a problem. But when you have to start him on the board, why? It just, it's terrible. He's like 100 points too much. I've used him in like 2 or 3 tournaments and then I never went back to him. Yes, I know you can get really lucky. I know that you can verse melee armies and then you don't get shot off the table. I know that he can do a lot of damage in combat and he ignores invulnerable saves. But when you can get shot so easily, especially by Votan and Guard, which is the meta at the moment, he's way too expensive. 100 points, at least. Demon Princes. Demon Princes, for some reason, is still 185 points. That's a lot. I'd reduce them to maybe like 160 with wings. Otherwise, they're fine. They actually hit really hard. The only thing I would change is maybe make change the save for them to be more of an indicator based on their divination. Like Tzeentch should have a 3-up from shooting and a 5-up in combat. Nurgle and Khorne and Slaanesh should all be like 4-up, 4-up. Or make like Khorne 5-up from shooting, 3+ in melee, and make it the opposite of Tzeentch. You know, they're going to deep strike anyway, or he's going to be protected until he makes it to combat. Why does all of the Demon Prince models have a 5-up saving combat? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, you know, like you get this stuff, which is Khorne gets an additional strength and add 2 to his attacks. That's great. But change the save as well. Slaanesh, add 2 to your move. Yeah. Nurgle, add 1 to your toughness. Yeah. I mean, it's all good. It's just maybe a bit too expensive, and I think the saves should change just a little bit. Because when you get a Demon Prince into combat, he's not exactly the most killy thing in the world. And then when you hit something and then you whiff and you get hit back, you can die to like 3 Acolyte hybrids with rock cutters. And that's like 60 points. Because you are 5-up safe at only toughness 6. I mean, what? For 185 points? That seems a little bit crazy. And Soul Grinders, I think, are actually really pretty good, honestly. I've seen a few people run them. A lot of people like to run Soul Grinders with Nurgle, so you get toughness 9. They're honestly a decent fire base. The only thing I would change with them is that they're a little bit too swingy again. If saves are going to be swingy, if warp storms are going to be swingy, these things need to be not swingy. Like Phlegm Bombardment should not be D6 shots. Just make it like 2d3 or something. No? Something like that. You know, Iron Claw, D6 damage. No. Just make that 4 damage. Just take the swinginess away. Yeah. Disciples of Be'lakor. And then Crusade, which I'm not going to go into. I don't know a whole lot enough. Like, I don't know enough about Disciples of Be'lakor to use these strats. I know that people use things like Draught of Terror to revive things like Beasts of Nurgle, which is huge. Otherwise, I don't really want to comment on too many of these. I think that they're fine. Again, the strats are really not the issue. I think adding more stratagems would be fine. Maybe not for Disciples of Be'lakor, because you can use this in combination with the Chaos books and stuff, and maybe use their strats. I don't even know if you can use their strats anymore. But yeah, these are fine. I think they're fine. Demons died with Flamers is what Puppies is saying. Yeah, I think Flamers are still fine. I'm honestly fine to see them go, because they were really oppressive. Like, they were really strong. And I think that they're fine now the way that they are. Not auto-hitting. Yeah, you can still buff them up to hit stuff on 2s and reroll 1s. It's now you just want to take like 1 unique unit instead of taking a huge spam of 15 Flamers, which I think is fine. The main things I think with this book is that for some reason, I think it's like the only book in the game that doesn't have traits and it doesn't have warlord traits. If it was me, I'd be adding, as I've said 100,000 times in this video alone probably, is that they need traits. The greater demons need just more survivability, more utility, and you just need more stratagems, more warp storm points. Like most of the warp storms are just entirely useless. In 6 tournaments, I've never, ever used some of these warp storm effects, like the generic ones. Like, when are you ever going to do, unless you're versing T-Suns or Grey Knights, Psycho units within 12, perils on any double for 2 points. I mean, maybe. What is the chances that you have a unit that is going to survive, that is within 12, right? And then what are the chances that your opponent will take perils? Like, what is the chance that they'll actually roll doubles? I don't know. A lot of our armies are even immune to perils. Like, Farseers would just ignore this completely. So, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of it is entirely useless. Malicious direction. Use this effect at the start of the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase. Until the end of the step, enemy strategic reserve units can only be set up as if it was the second battle round. Yeah! Be pretty good if someone wanted to come in your zone, especially with strategic reserve now being free. But it's just, why? You only get like 4 or 5 warp storms. You're going to spend half of them on that? I don't know. It just seems limited. If the changes that I said happen tomorrow, like Greater Demons getting a 3-up against damage 1 to a max of 3-up, and counting as 10, being Titanic, falling back and charging and all that stuff, all the warp storm effects, gaining stuff, rolling 8 dice plus 2 for free, and reducing all of these by 1 point, and then lowering the cost of all of the units by like 10 to 15% across the whole Codex except Tzeentch, and things like 100 points for Be'lakor. Do I think that they would be the best army in the game? Maybe. I think they might be like top 5 armies in the game. I still don't think that they would be ridiculously broken. They are just so underwhelming. And in my point of view, they are the worst book in the game, unfortunately. So, yeah, that sucks. Demons need Emperor's Chosen Legion trait. For 4 at Feel No Pain, yeah, against mortal wounds. And rerolling a hit or a wound, or whatever it is, yeah. Can't bank your gameplay on Warp Storm points, yeah. Yeah, or for rolling 4-up saves. Infernal Rapturous has that build in a 24-inch, yeah. And all doubles, yeah. So a lot of the things in here just like, they either overlap themselves or they don't synergize well enough at all, you know? I reckon it just needs a little bit of a review. Like a few of the different things need reviewing. Even the Greater Demons and stuff from Forge World, like they affect all demon units. It's not even core demon units. They didn't even write in core. Yaraka the Warfiend from Khorne just gives reroll hit rolls of 1 to all Khorne units. Why? Everything in the game, everything else gives it to core only, except for Be'lakor, who gives reroll hit rolls of 1 to all demon units, including himself. So, I don't know. Everything is overcosted. Definitely. Agreed. Huge. Everything is overcosted. Except for maybe a few small things, like Skull Altar, 50 points, that's fine. Yeah. Everything else is pretty expensive, to be honest. So, yeah. I don't know. That is my review. It took a little bit longer than I expected, but chat, let me know what you think. What you think about Demons, what you think about the video. For everyone watching this video after it's gone up, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I know that there's probably going to be a lot of people that react negatively to this and dislike the video and all that stuff, which is fine. I don't care. That's totally fine. That's your prerogative. Yeah, give me your thoughts and your opinions. But I think there's a lot of people who also really want to see demons actually flourish, and they just don't at the moment. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are and how this video went, what we can do to improve. I'm not saying that we're going to be doing this for every single new book that comes out, especially new book reviews, because that would just take a long time and a lot of reading. But for something like this, as a one-off every now and then for Demons, I might do the same thing for Eldar down the track. Yeah, it was fun. Let me know what you think. I still love Demons. Yeah, they're good. They're fun more than anything, which is saying something because they really don't have very much going on. Not enough Neil. Yeah, exactly. Send me a list. Yeah, cool. If you want to send me some lists as well of what you play for Demons, you can send them in our Discord, down in our Discord, which is free. First link in the description. We have a list building section, so feel free to link all your lists down there. Not at these points, unfortunately. Yep, loved it. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Do my best. Yeah, looking to improve on every video. But it was nice. Thank you all for joining me today and looking at this Codex with me, to everyone in the chat and to everyone who's going to watch this afterwards. Yeah, again, try to be kind with your comments. If you've watched the whole way through and you've hated everything I said, then that's just unfortunate. But leave me a comment and tell me why. Tell me what you would change. If there's anything unique that I haven't said or a weird idea that might come across to you, again, this is all just for fun. I don't think GW's listening. I don't think that they're really going to care what we do, but it's all in good fun. It's good nature, and we're just talking about rules and what we would do. So, yeah. Yeah, Glenn says, have a good day, everyone. Thank you, Jack. You're very welcome. Do my best. Otherwise, if you haven't yet like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, you know, down below. You can become a YouTube member with us for only $4 Australian a month, which is like essentially a coffee. And you get access to a whole bunch of rewards, including up to 25% off new orders over at Dice Arcade, link in the description, so go check them out as well. The next game that we're going to be doing is next Tuesday. There won't be a game this Saturday, and I believe it's already up there. You can go check out the link for the next Tuesday game, and you can put the bell on for that so that you get notified. It's going to be Ynnari versus Space Wolves. It's ready to go. I love that Scarbrand idea with making Khorne-based things more accurate. Yeah, or just making things less accurate around him as they go into a frenzy, you know? Yeah. Otherwise, thank you, chat, for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.